Can everyone please join me in welcoming Gary Tramer? So Gary, why don't we start off with sharing who you are and your history and how you got to where you are today?
No problem at all. Can you guys hear me okay up there? Yep. So if we sort of go back, I started university about 2000 after travelling Europe, the Middle East for about a year actually. And I decided to do a degree in behavioural neuroscience, which is really a fancy psychology degree. It sounds far more impressive on the resume. So I did this degree for 3 years, and it's that weird, awkward time in your life when you're thrust into university and you really have no idea what you want to do with yourself, and you're trying to come up with the answers, and your parents are like, be a doctor, be a lawyer, and you say, I didn't get the grades. It's not as simple as that. It was this period where I was trying to find what I was good at, and sometimes you don't find that out until much later. In fact, I never forget at school in year 11 we had a fashion parade where it was a mandatory fashion parade, so it wasn't like you had to volunteer. And one of the guests sponsors was Peter Alexander. The pajama guy.
The pajama guy.
Yeah.
With the dog.
Yeah, exactly. And he stood up in front of a room of all the parents that were in the audience, and he said, for all you kids, if you drop out of school in year 11, you'll be fine. It's what happened to me, and look at me, I'm richer than all of you in the room. And I remember myself and all my friends, we had this idea that it was okay to not finish school or to not do your tertiary education. I finished behavioural neuroscience, and I got involved in sales. Potted around, but in sales. And the sort of sales that I got involved in was probably when we talk about it now, it's the dirtiest, most frowned upon type of selling, door-to-door sales. Yeah, when you go home and you tell your parents that you're going to do door-to-door sales, what do you think they say?
Well, I can only imagine.
So I never said that I was going to do door-to-door sales.
What did you say? What was
I said I'm going to be a residential sales consultant, which is like gloss for door-to-door out in like whoop whoop. And I actually found it really quite awesome. Most people you get the doors slammed in your face, you get the dog chasing you down the street, and we were trying to sign people up for energy companies, I won't mention the names, energy companies and telecommunications companies. And I actually really enjoyed this idea, completely commission-based, by the way, no base wage. If you didn't do a sale, you didn't make money. We were working 14-hour days. It's crazy. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I sort of knew then, if I could do that, and if I can sell in that environment, this is sort of for me. And so I built a company 2004 through to 2010, which was actually one of Australia's largest direct sales companies. So if you would have walked through Melbourne Airport or Sydney Airport between those years, and somebody tried to sell you
that was you.
A Citibank or American Express credit card, would have been our guys and girls out there. And we wrote huge amounts of volumes of sales for these companies and did very, very well. And I decided after doing that for 5 or 6 years, it was sort of enough. Mainly because I thought, if I'm doing so well for these companies, what if I put the sales resource to something that I owned and added some value to myself or to a team that I put around? And that's basically what I did. And so my business partner, Michael, who's actually a friend of mine, we've known each other since we were 3, lived in the same street, went to school together, best mates. We went on different paths and came back. And in 2011, we decided to do this cool thing called a startup, which back then wasn't really like a word like this. It was just start a small business, actually. And we had this idea. So this is not going to sound exciting at all now, but back then, we thought, how awesome would it be if you could have the entertainment book on your phone. Now I know it sounds really boring, but back then iPhones had been out for like 2 or 3 years. It was like really cool. And we asked our accountant to help raise some money, because that's what you do. And we managed to raise about $250,000, which is, I think, quite an amazing thing. We spent, I reckon, like 7 or 8 days locked in my house doing a business plan using Business Plan Pro software. You know, it's like a wizard that tells you like what to write. It's amazing. Because we thought that's what you do, right? You have a business, the accountants are like, you have to have a business plan.
Yep.
Have a business plan. All this thought into how it's going to work, and we're paying for these IBIS reports on like industry sizes, and like, seems weird now, that's what we did. Okay. Raised the money, and we spent the money on developing the product. And I say that with a smile because I would never ever do that again. But we spent about $200,000, I think the line item in the budget was $200,000 on building the app and the website, about $30,000 on the sales guys, and $10,000 on this, and then $10,000 on marketing. And we're like, it's going to be huge. And I think the movie, The Social Network, had just come out, and we were all inspired, like, we will be the next Facebook.
Well, if you did that in 2 hours.
Exactly. And we're like, this will be us. Needless to say, we built this unbelievable product, like literally it was amazing, that no one ever used. We got no users. Okay. Because we didn't spend any money on marketing. And we learnt this lesson, and I say that now, but we learnt this lesson. That was the most painful lesson, to go back to investors and say, like, we lost your money. It takes a big hit on your pride to say that. And it was that gut-wrenching moment that we said, never again are we going to build something before we actually sell something. So from now on, because to try and market the product, you really only needed a brochure. You didn't need all this stuff that we'd built. So we didn't even know if it worked. And I know nowadays with the lean startup and these sorts of teachings, that's sort of the way of doing things. And so we've applied that ever since. And so I'm going to fast forward a few businesses to today. As that business was failing, we thought that selling SEO would be cool, because Google just released Google Places, and we figured small businesses are probably going to want to rank well. So we took my door-to-door team, and we went, printed some brochures. We called the company Search Words, and we decided to go and sell local SEO door-to-door. We had no SEO team. I don't think we were even registered as a company or a business yet. And we said, we're going to do it for 12 weeks, and if we get customers, we'll find an SEO team somewhere in the world. But if we don't get customers or enough, we'll just refund them the money and say, sorry, couldn't get your results, which is sort of common in SEO land. And so 12 weeks went by, and we had 600 paying customers that paid upfront for the year about $1,000 or $1,500.
600 paying customers
Yeah.
in 12 weeks.
So we actually had them on printed, like it wasn't iPads, it was like literally a piece of paper, like a contract, all like tiny writing. So they really weren't reading it. But anyway, put their name, their details, their credit card, they wrote at the bottom, they signed it. We had all the ideas of doing this as a really great business. 12 weeks later, we hadn't touched any of their websites, Google, nothing. And we looked at each other and we said, I think we need to find an SEO team now. And so we did. We put one together, and we built that business to about 6,000 customers over 3 years. And then we had this mass realization that building a business that competes against Google's best interest is probably not the best business model. Because like every 3 weeks or every 6 months, they'll change the game, and you have to redo it all over again, which was very frustrating. And customers saying to us, why aren't I getting results? You know, I was ranked 1, now I'm ranked like nothing. And we're trying to explain to them that's because you don't see it anymore, but the person on their phone sees it now, or whatever it was. Search words actually still runs all these years later with one person running the entire customer base. We don't sell anymore, we just manage the customers. They're all ranking pretty well and have been, so we sort of said, let's just keep that going. Search words then morphed into a company which we started called Lead Chat, which you talked about. We had this thing where we were getting traffic to people's websites in SEO land, and the problem was when you looked at their websites, a very small percentage would actually convert into an inquiry, like 1%, maybe 2%. So we said, how do we fix this? So I had a Filipino virtual assistant at the time. She's amazing, like literally amazing. And I said, what if you sit on live chat like all day for me? I wonder how many people will chat with you on our website. And it worked, like instantly it worked. We got 10 times the leads. And we said, if it worked for us and we would pay for this, then we should definitely make this a product. Same thing, let's find 100 customers and then we'll decide whether we're going to build out a team. We got 100 customers, we built out a team, and Lead Chat still runs now and operates in, 10 countries, 15 countries, which is pretty crazy. But the lesson was to sell first and build it second, and we sort of apply that model every day. And then it comes to powered local. So Lead Chat got to the point where it was running quite well. I get bored very easily. I don't have ADD, I don't think. But I think entrepreneurs, we like the shiny, we like the new thing, and then once it's running, it's like not that exciting anymore. So this Lead Chat business that we had that was doing live chat, we had a customer that was in e-commerce, that was like an online store, and said, can you do chat for us? And we said, of course we can. Because when you're in sales, you just say yes to everybody. It's like, of course we can do it. We did a terrible job, and their website conversions went down. So they actually lost money, and we couldn't figure out what had happened. And then we had another customer in e-commerce say, can you do it for us? Of course we can. We screwed it up again. So my business partner said, there's only one way to solve this. Let's start an e-commerce company, and let's put chat on and figure out how to do it ourselves.
Makes sense.
Okay. So the chat didn't work for this e-commerce company. We couldn't make it work. But this e-commerce company worked. And within 18 months, we were selling gamer, like for gamers, apparel, like hoodies. We were manufacturing them in China. We're selling them globally, marketing through Facebook. And within 18 months, we had a $20 million annualized run rate. So doing about $1.8 million a month. We were spending about $750,000 on Facebook ads a month. And we're still enjoying all the frequent flyer points still. And we sold that business to a US big internet company in 2016. And that was a really great lesson on how to sell without salespeople, and how to have a business that had really me and Michael, Andre, who was the advertising guru, and some Filipino customer service reps who were amazing, a team of like 5, and that was it.
Team of 5.
Yeah, I mean, the manufacturing was outsourced.
Okay.
And so when we sold that, it was a real wake up. It was, this is crazy. We couldn't make chat work, but we made e-commerce work. And people asked us, what was the secret to making e-commerce work? Like, how did you do it so fast? And the secret was that Facebook allowed us to target people quite uniquely with specific interests. So we had a custom audience. We had an email database that we were growing through these people who had purchased that we could basically remarket to. We knew everyone visiting the website via what's called a cookie, so we could actually, you see the ads after you visit a website over and over again, so we could get people back. And after they'd purchased, we could get more money out of them by upselling like a second item for half the price. And so Michael and I said, this is unbelievable. Like Kogan does it, all the big brands do it, the Iconic, that's how they get so much out of their website. But the brick and mortar stores, like the JB Hi-Fis or the restaurants or your fitness brands, they don't know who you are when you walk in. Could we solve that for them? So we decided to build a company called Powered Local, which is our focus today. And that business is about identifying people that walk into venues through Wi-Fi, and then helping those brands market back to those individuals as a way of building a database of their foot traffic. And now we have this view of what a business should look like for us, and that is we should always have customers before we invest anything. We never raise money for any of our businesses, besides the one that we lost the money. And by the way, those investors from the first business, we actually gave them equity in every other business since I say good faith, that's code for guilt. It's like they had a leap of faith with us. And businesses where we don't have to sell every time. So we like subscription businesses where you do a sale, the customer will keep paying for the service, and every sales effort or cost to acquire somebody is for a new customer to throw into the bucket. Because our e-commerce company, you had to keep spending with Facebook to get the customer to come in. And we didn't like the idea that we would have to keep spending for the same customers. And the models have worked quite well for us. And so that brings us to today, where Lead, Chat and Powered Local still run. And now we spend our time just trying to optimize those businesses and bring people in that can help us run them, because we're terrible managers. We're not very good at doing the day-to-day. We like, our team, they hate us. I mean, they like us, but they hate us. Every day we're changing the CRM. It's like, I found this new CRM. We have to use that one. They're like, we just spent the last 4 months learning that one. I'm like, yeah, but this is way better. It drives them nuts. But it keeps us fresh, so.
I understand that. I bring back books from my team all the time, and they've started using it as doorstops.
So,
Gary, so I like what you said, that you sell before you have a product, and this idea that sales cures all. But there is something which I want to flag. You make it sound so easy. You say, I learned how to sell, I created a business, and then I've got 9,000 customers, doing $20 million run rate a year. I mean, can we break it down a little bit and just talk a bit more about the lessons? How do you learn how to sell? How do you do that?
I'll give you very tactical advice or experiences. And this is not how to sell. We're in a great day and age today where you don't need to know how to know how to sell. So when we were doing door to door, you had to know how to sell. Like we trained impulsing techniques, closing techniques, objection handling. It was that idea that no matter what somebody said, you could really back them into a yes, and it was very tactical. Nowadays, people have so much information available to them, you can't corner them into a sale, right? You just can't do it. So you've got to educate them and let them make a decision. And so if I was teaching a younger me today how to do sales, I would say, step one, figure out who your ideal customer is. So imagine that you had to list every characteristic you could of that person. Then that might be their gender, their position within the company, their geography, their company mix, how many people are in the company, what technologies does that company use, which you can find out online using tools like Similar Tech. I would be looking at everything you can about the profile. So we look at our customers and our businesses now where we reverse engineer. What do they all have in common? What's the one common thread between all of them that gives us the one profile, not the 10, the one profile? And once you know what that is, then you know who your target customer is. If you know who your target customer is, then you need a list of target customers, especially if you're in B2B. How do you get a list of your target customers? Yellow Pages, Yelp,
That's simple.
LinkedIn, and then you would use a bunch of tools, some of which I'll say on camera, some of which I will tell you after, that will actually help you acquire the customer details and build a list on autopilot.
Wow.
So like literally you go to these websites and you use some specific tools, and within 10 minutes you'll have a database of your entire customer targets in an Excel sheet or a Google sheet, and then you will use another piece of software to find their email addresses. So we don't cold call anymore. And then you'll use another piece of software to email them all sequentially with very personalised emails. It's not spam. It's, you know, I know enough about you to really be personalised in that email. All I'm asking for is a response to the email, like, sounds interesting, happy to have a coffee, whatever it might be, so I can get appointments. I want demos. I want appointments with somebody that's a decision maker. Right. So it's email to demo. From the demo, you're sitting there and you don't sell them. You just say, let me find out about you. This is what we do. Do you think it's a good idea or it's a bad idea? And if they like it, they'll say, this is really cool, how do we use it? And if they think it's a bad idea, they'll be polite and say, yeah, we'll think about it. And then you have customers that will just, and that's just naturally how it happens. It sounds simple, but it's the process that we use today. And there's books like Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross, who built Salesforce's sales team, uses that model. There's the Sales Hacker community that teach you all the tricks and all the new software that helps you do this. And that's how we sell.
Wow. When you reflect back on your sales journey, I think, what was your first title? It was a...
Residential sales consultant, or residential business consultant, or whatever.
I love. Firstly, when you said that to your family or your parents, what did they say?
Can I swear?
Please.
They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? What is that? They were supportive, but they also thought, you know, this will last a week. Okay. You know, because it's not really, I think, what they had planned for me.
And one thing which I do believe is when you look back, things make sense, the progression and the links. When you look back on your whole sales journey and learning, what do you think about that? Just take a step back.
So I actually think, like, I have 3 kids, 3, 5 and 7. My wife and I met doing like residential business consultancy. Actually, no, we were standing at the airport together selling credit cards. So we both come from the same sales background. My kids, when they grow up, the first thing I will tell them is get a job in door-to-door sales. Like, that is legitimately what I would tell them. Do it for a year. Because I think, even though it's really tough, my view is this: if you're in business, if you want to run a business, and you're non-technical, you have to know how to sell. Right. And by sell, I mean you have to be customer facing or understand the process and not fear it. And I think that's a great lesson, because running a business is commission based, really, isn't it? It's, you know, if you don't sell, you don't make money.
What do you think is the biggest mistake that you see, or what is the biggest mistake you see people make in terms of their businesses and the sales?
So I was speaking to a friend yesterday that has a really cool business. They do this thing called Elliptigo. I don't know if you ever, you know, cross trainers at gym, like that thing that looks like you're running but you're not really running. They have those but in bikes for people that have injuries. And they've gone and spent, it's really cool. And they've gone and spent a whole bunch of money on marketing in terms of like design, brochures, websites, etc. And I said, all that money you've spent, I mean, do you have a customer yet? And they're like, no. And we tried to distill who the ideal profile was, and then we identified that they needed to target physiotherapists who had access to people who were injured, who were the ones most likely to use this crazy contraption. And without doing any of that work, really, you're sort of spending money on marketing people who are going to be trying to figure it out on your dime. Like, they're trying to figure out the audience for you, but really you can do it yourself. And I think the biggest mistake now people make is they try and invest all their time in the product without doing any customer research or trying to sell the product at all. And my view is, if you can't sell something face to face, you'll never be able to sell it online. Because online really is a distillation of all those messages you would use with a person to put it online. So if I can't sell you lead chat one-to-one, you're never going to sign up on the website. That's my view.
Wow. What about people who are scared of selling? Who they say, selling, I'm not a natural salesperson, or I don't even know where to start?
It's a good question. I think there are a lot of very, very good introverted salespeople, and I think actually today the wider community prefers to speak to people that are like that, actually. You go to a car dealership and they're all slick and everything else, you already have that aversion to them. But somebody who, you know, this will sound very stereotypical, but, you know, that's a bit shy, you know, like poor body language like this, you know, wearing glasses, that doesn't look like a salesperson, will actually have a much better result.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say to those people, sorry, you have an advantage. Just have conversations, it's fine.
Wow, okay.
People will buy off you.
Would you say that being able to set up all these processes and teams and structures and tools, it's a bit like a superpower? You could go off and launch any business and just go turn on the tap.
I wouldn't say it's a superpower. I'd say some people have obsessions with things. You know, like some people are obsessed with drawing or going to the gym or, you know, cooking. And I just found that I had an obsession with spending endless hours on the internet looking for new tools on websites like Product Hunt, where like every day there's like 5,000 new things that are released, and I just browse them all. A complete waste of time, actually. Like when I reflect back on my deathbed and I go, how much time did I spend trying CRMs, you know? But I think that you find the tools that make your life easier, so I think anyone can really do it.
Tell me about a sales horror story.
A sales horror story. I'll tell you one from today. Okay. So I'm not usually involved in the sales process, but for lead chat, we had a customer come in who is an electrician. It was a web lead via Facebook. And I'm very big into qualifying customers. So my conversion rate from a demo to a sale is 100%. And the reason it's 100% is I never continue past the point of qualification. So if I know they're not going to buy, I don't continue. I'm like, see ya. So I can engineer that. And so I was asking all the qualification questions, you know, how many visitors to your website, all the usual things. The one question that was on my list of qualifications that I usually ask is either what other things have you tried, or, you know, how much are you looking to spend? Like, beyond what amount of money would this not make sense for you, is usually how I would ask it. Didn't ask it. So he's like, what's the price? And I just threw out a number. I was, you know, in the middle of 5 things. I usually don't take these calls. I'm like, screw it. And I'm like, $1,500. And I explained the rationale behind it. And then he said, so I've been looking at 2 other companies like you. I can get it for $400. See ya. Bang. And I'm sitting there going, oh my, because I would have been happy to charge him $400 as well. Like, we have this dynamic pricing model, which is, you know, like if he wants to spend $400, give him $400 worth of what you can sell, and just give him a reduced service. So I would have been fine, but I lost him. And I couldn't even save it because he'd hung up on me because we were so far off. And then obviously if I would have gone back and said, actually, you've twisted my arm, I can do it for $400, it would have looked very slimy. And we record the calls, we tell them it's recorded, especially when I do it, so we can share it with the sales team. So it's like, this is how you do it. And I'm logging into the call dashboard going, how do you delete that? I don't want them to see that one. That's how you don't qualify a customer. There you go.
Beautiful. I'm just mindful of time, so I'm going to ask you one more question and we're going to take a break.
Sure.
The theme of tonight is growth hacking and how do you grow your business or startup. Now, you're very heavy on the sales front. What is that one piece of advice that you can give people in terms of growing their own businesses or startups with sales?
The one piece of advice I would say is use Google Keyword Planner to determine if there is a need for what you are thinking about offering, or a tool called semrush.com, which is a paid version of that, to find out if there is a need. If there is nobody looking for what you want offering, maybe it's not a good place to start. And if you're really ballsy like me and try and do products that aren't in the market, then I would spend about $100 on some Facebook ads to get out to the audience that you think might be interested and see whether anybody even looks or clicks on that ad. That would be my number one piece of advice.
Amazing. Thank you. If everyone could join me in thanking Gary.
Cheers, man.